Hello out there, and in front of you today are two new releases for CRKT from 2020. Up top we have the Overland, which is a knife that was sent to me by my buddy Jack Farmboy. Link to his awesome channel down below. He does some really good stuff, very creative videos as well. And then we also have the Tuna, which is a knife that I've already done an overview on, I've already talked about, but just having these two knives next to each other, being as similar as they are just in general aesthetics and in price point and in materials. So many aspects of them are similar, yet there are a number of differences that I just wanted to bring this pair of knives together and take advantage of the opportunity to do a little bit of a deep dive, more so than what I usually do on this channel in a review. We're going to go over a lot more of like the finer details, the minutia of all of these two models, and sure, I'll pick a winner. I'll tell you right now, the winner is up here. The Overland, that's the one that I prefer. But what's going to be interesting is there's going to be a lot of small points as we go through these knives where I prefer some of the aspects of the Tuna, but it's just one or two really big things that the Overland gets right that I think the Tuna misses on that really set it apart for me. So we'll get into all that stuff. Let's get started with just the general size and then the weight, and then we'll get into the blade, handle materials, all that kind of stuff, and get all of it covered. All right, starting with the sizes of these guys, I gotta tell you, both of these knives, maybe I wasn't paying attention to the spec sheets online. I expected them to be a little larger, specifically the Overland. I thought this was going to be a bigger knife, but it actually is the smaller of the two. You know, both of these have a cutting edge that's right around 3¼ inches. The Tuna's is just a little bit longer than the Overland, and then the overall length is going to run you almost a whole ½ inch longer on the Tuna. So you would think just with that extra handle material, extra space, that the ergos are going to be preferable there too. But looks can be deceiving, so we'll definitely get back to that. The weights are going to be very appropriate, just based on the size difference, 3.8, 3.81 ounces on the Tuna, and then the Overland slightly lighter at 3.46. Both of these have an aspect of interior machining and weight relief on the stainless steel, and if I'm not able to capture this on video, I'll definitely put a picture in. But yeah, the stainless steel frames on both of these knives, they do have a good amount of machining just to cut that weight and keep it manageable with that thick stainless steel frame. All right. Getting into the blade, so we're working with ACR 13, I believe, on both of these knives. No big surprise there. That's what CRKT is usually rolling with. I don't have a problem with the ACR. What I have noticed, though, is a little bit of a difference in the performance as far as sliciness goes. And I'll try to keep the Tuna at the bottom just so that there's no confusion. But the Tuna here has a hollow grind, and the Overland has a flat grind. As far as preference goes, even though it might mean sharpening the knife a little bit more often, I think I'd prefer the Tuna. And I think I said in the video about the Tuna that it was a lot of fun to cut with. I mean, this is a knife that is just a pretty good slicer, and it is a little bit better slicer than the Overland. But that said, the Overland's a very functional knife as well, and even though it is just maybe a little bit thicker, it isn't detrimentally thicker, you know, for what you might need it for. And I do get the vibe about the Overland that it just feels like more of an outdoorsman's kind of knife. I'll continue to hit on that point and explain and flesh that out a little bit more as we go. But it just sort of has that feel with some of the other design qualities and some of the things about it. Talking more about the blades, one thing when it comes to the grinds, and maybe this is just because of the stonewash and this like blackwash kind of finish, personally, whenever I see a grind line, I like it to be distinct. I like a nice, distinct grind line. And here it just sort of rolls, and maybe that is just because of the finish, but if you take a look at the hollow grind on like this mini Griptilian, and this is the OG mini Griptilian, by the way, it's very distinct. You see that line, it's solid. Here, you know, again, maybe just that finish, just like the way that that's done, it gives it a different kind of look, but yeah, not a fan of that as much. Again, guys, these are minor details, but in this video, I'm trying to hit as many of the minor details as I possibly can. One thing to note, and that grind is that sort of grind transition is the same on both of these. One thing to note though is when you look at them, you can see that even though we do have like a difference in the actual like structure of the top and with the swedge and the spines of the knives, the blades and the belly, the edges are actually pretty similarly shaped. So we might have just a little bit more belly here on the Tuna than on the Overland, but I mean they are not all that different. It's very slight. One big difference and one big positive that goes to the Overland is just the way that the edge terminates. If you take a look at it, it is pretty decently clean here. As far as resharpening, maybe like a little bit thicker and a little bit of a nub here, and you can see those grind lines, and maybe not the best thing aesthetically as far as like fit and finish if you're going to judge it on that, but it does definitely have a big kind of wonky thickness to the end right here on the Tuna. Taking a look at that. So that is something that, if I were going to be using this knife over and over and over again and resharpening it a whole lot, that'd be something where I would just take a Dremel and just like push that notch out a little bit further to eliminate that nub. So I'm sure other people could do better things with it than I could, but that's how I would resolve it. Taking a look at the top of the knives, you'll get an idea of what the blade stock is, and it is slightly thicker on the Tuna, and again, sort of equaling out somewhat when we have that hollow grind versus the flat grind over here on the Overland. I really like both blade shapes. I like the tips and the points on both of them. I really like the classiness of the swedge on the Tuna. But as we go back to that above view, the aerial view, what you can see is the next big talking point is the jimping. The jimping can tell you a lot about the design of the knife and what it's meant for and how it's meant to be used, and just intentionality in the design. If I line up the thumb studs here, and I actually let's line up the end of the scales because the thumb studs are slightly off there, but, look at that. Look at the difference in the jimping and the size of it and the location of it. What I really like, maybe more than almost anything when it comes to a knife, is I like to pick up a knife and know how I'm supposed to hold it. That's important to me. When I get a knife in my hand, my favorite knife of 2019, by the way. When I get a knife in the hand and it fits perfectly and I'm able to lock in, I say, okay, this is how the manufacturer wants me to hold this knife. I can hold it like this. I can hold it like any which way that I want, but like it has a home. This is exactly how it should be. I completely get that with the Overland in a way that I didn't with the Tuna. I knew that I preferred the Overland over the Tuna within 10 seconds of having not even, within immediately when I got the Overland in my hand, because it fit perfectly. I was like, okay, I understand this knife. Already at this point, I understand this knife and what it's all about. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that the jimping is right here, your thumb fits on it perfectly. This little choil area, this notch, whatever we're going to call it, like it is home. With the Tuna, with the jimping not being really useful and with it being a little bit recessed and just not, just sort of just being there, I can use this knife in a bunch of different ways, and I have, and it's been fine, but it doesn't have this natural fit in the hand the way that I want it to. It doesn't tell me exactly what I'm supposed to do with it. And yeah, I know, I understand, guys, like, make every tool your own and use it the way you need to, but there just needs to be, I think, a little bit more definition, or at least I appreciate that definition when it is told to me, use the knife this way, this is how it's designed, it's going to fit perfectly, go. And that's what the Overland does that the Tuna doesn't. So that is sort of a big thing. And then when we're talking more about the jimping, you can just see how defined this is and how rigid and how, honestly, a little bit hot spotty if you're going to use it really heavily. You don't need to use it really heavily, I'm sure, but if you did, for a long period of time, this could be a little uncomfortable. But one other thing that it tells me is that this might be a knife that is meant to be used with gloves. If you had gloves on, maybe a little bit small in the hand, sure, but that jimping would still really work. It wouldn't beat you up. Gives me a little bit more of this outdoor kind of feel when it comes to the knife. All right, a couple more things to talk about when it comes to the blade. The blade and just the way that it's used, the philosophy. Let's stay with that for a second and talk about this blade angle. One of the things that I saw hyped was almost a negative blade angle when it comes to the Overland. And what that really means is that if you have a knife and when you're holding it, the blade is still below where your fingers are, just geographically, physically, then you have a negative blade angle, and it's really good for a number of different kind of tasks, specifically culinary tasks. You know, if you look at kitchen knives, what you'll have is you'll have a handle that tapers up almost, and then so you're basically able to get the whole knife on a cutting board. Now, that's not 100% the case here, but it does have a little bit of that kind of feature so that it would be better for food prep, definitely better for food prep than the Tuna. You know, if you take a look at where my fingers are, how far below they are, if you're going to use this on a cutting board, like you're going to have to cut on the edge of the table, or you know, just cut with the tip. This a little more versatility when it comes to that, and a little bit, you know, better with just the way that the edge tapers down a little bit lower here. You know, you'd be able to get a little bit more use in that capacity. So, you know, where I read that this is meant to be like an outdoorsman's kind of EDC, good everything kind of knife, I can really see that, because it seems like it has a little bit more versatility just because of the way that the handle is set up. One last thing about the blade, and I know we're really getting into the minutia here, but I want to talk about these thumb studs, because the thumb studs are different. And this is one of those things that, you know, when I first saw these knives and I saw the color similarities and the blade color and the finish similarities, and then the finishes on the lock sides and the accent colors, all that stuff, I thought, all right, it's going to be like comparing white bread to sourdough. But really, with some of these small details really adding up, it seems like it's comparing white bread to pumpernickel. But the thumb studs are a part of that. Now, as I talk about these thumb studs, keep in mind, they're both good thumb studs. Like, one of them I'd rate a 10 out of 10, the other one a 9 out of 10, but I definitely do have a preference, and I prefer the thumb stud on the Tuna. So taking a look at the one on the Tuna, it has that more traditional kind of like pyramid setup. So you do just get better traction. Opening the knife is really great. Spider flicking with that thumb stud, super easy. So that's a good thing. That said, the Overland isn't bad at all. It just is, I don't know, just not my preferred thumb stud. It's just fine. But again, I'm not the kind of guy who's going to say, screw this knife because of the thumb stud. It's not even remotely near that. One thing about that thumb stud, though, is there's a little bit of similarity, synchronicity, you know, between the pivot and the thumb stud there, just like matching look. So I guess that's sort of cool. But now let's finally move on back beyond the blade, talk about the scales, some of the differences and similarities here. The biggest similarity that you're going to see is just the G10 is actually the same G10. It's exactly the same. It's finished the same way on the main parts of the scales as well. So taking a look at that, the traction on both of these, and the color is actually slightly different, like slightly darker kind of green on the Tuna, as you can see here, which I don't know, maybe it's just the light. It depends on the light. I don't always notice a difference, but sometimes it's there, and maybe it's just the finish reflecting on the other parts, because what you have is like this medium kind of traction scale, which is the same over here. But then the way that it's chamfered and the way that it's finished on the edges is very different. You know, on the Overland, you have this extra space here as it contours, and this space doesn't have that level of traction. It's a little bit more smooth. The Tuna, the chamfering is going to be all the way up on the edge. And so, yeah, it's not sharp. It's executed well on both of these knives. I think personally, I just prefer having the more traction throughout the scale than on the Overland. The Overland does have one other feature on its scale, which is these kind of like points of contact that maybe for pulling it out of the pocket. If you're, you know, in the closed position, it's in the pocket, you're pulling it out. get a grip on it right here, maybe something like that. Or just knowing where your finger is on the knife, just, you know, if you're using it in the dark or something, just gives you just that, like, that compass kind of point of here I am kind of thing. Who knows? Doesn't really add anything to the aesthetics in my opinion. One difference with the stop pin, as we go to the top, you can see it's hidden on the Overland. It is not on the Tuna. Is that a big deal? No, it's just something I noticed and I'm trying to talk about everything. All right, let's flip it over and talk about the stainless steel frames. I really like these frames, guys. Just the way that they're finished, and by finished I mean like the look of them. The black wash on them it's arguably the best stainless steel black wash that I've seen on a CRKT, on these two, just with the way that this is stressed on the edges. It just looks really good. And so, yeah, I'm impressed with that for the aesthetic reasons. As we look a little bit closer, let's take a look at the pivots and the accents. The accents are actually different on these knives, and you might not be able to see it. I might have to put in a picture. As I tilt towards the light, you can see actually a difference in color between the Overland and the Tuna. That is legitimate. The Overland has darker colored orange accents. Again, this is one of those things, like if you're doing accents, why are you going to do two different, like make them that different if they're that similar? I don't know. I wouldn't have expected CRKT to have different colors between these back spacers and these pivot collars, but they do. Personally, I prefer the color on the Overland. I prefer the thickness of the Tuna. I think the pivot collar just looks better on the Tuna overall. Again, preferences, does it matter? Not really. All right. One thing that might matter when we're talking about lock and engagement here is the way that the knife, how you disengage the lock. So taking a look at the Overland, you can see that really nice cutout, and it's very easy. You know exactly where to do it. It's up close to the top of the lock bar. Makes sense, right? The Tuna, not so much. The Tuna, this cutout is just a little bit more faint. It's subtle. It's harder to actually like get to. So for me, when I'm doing it, it's almost more of a push down into it and then push out. Again, it's just one of those it's one of those things where it's nitpicky, and I know some people care about it more than I do, but it's just something that, you know, I would rather be able to disengage the knife a little bit easier. So there's that. The Overland did it pretty well, though. Both of these knives do have over travel stops. That seems to be like the new thing. I don't know that either of them need it, but they have them. Stainless steel over travel stops. Sort of in the same place, sort of executed the same way. So really no big difference there. And then as we continue to move on back, let's talk about these clips, actually. The clips are another thing. Excuse me. The clips are another thing where you look at it and you're like, all right, these knives are, you know, sort of sister knives. They're going to have the same clip, right? Why wouldn't they have the same clip? Well, they don't. I don't know why. I really like the clip on the Tuna. I think it looks super cool. I like how it's completely open. The clip on the Overland is just fine too. They both carry well. They actually sort of both carry the same, because when they get up to, you know, the loop over, they're essentially the same clip there. It's just in design and aesthetics that they're different. Retention on both of them is good. So yeah, not really a deal breaker or a big deal there, but sort of more of a curiosity. All right, and then as we continue to go, let's take a look at the lanyard holes and the very backs of the knives. The lanyard hole for the Tuna is reminiscent of a squid. I know I have a squid right here. Maybe I don't. All right, I thought I had a squid nearby, but it seems like I do not. But if you look at a CRKT squid as well, you know, you have the same kind of shape in the hole in the back. So yeah, nice continuity there. The lanyard hole for the Overland is just serviceable, same kind of deal. And here, actually, you can see the color difference on the backspacer that actually is mirrored in the pivot collars. So here is the difference between the backspacers of the Tuna on the right and the Overland here. Again, I sort of like the color more, that like more vibrant color on the Overland, but I do like the design of this backspacer on the Tuna just a little bit more. Opening and closing, let's take a look. We are rocking these plastic washers on both of them. I've talked a lot about the plastic washers on the new CRKTs. Talked a lot about them. And actually, here's a tuna. Or sorry, here's a squid. Another quick tangent. There you go. So continuity between the Lucas Burnley designs. Very cool. All right. But I've talked a lot about the washers and how even though they're executed well and these knives do fly open and they're actually pretty smooth closing, how I just would have liked something a little bit more. You know, I would have liked something a little bit more when it comes to how they addressed such excellent designs. You know, they have so many good designs at CRKT, don't get me wrong, like not just these two, but sometimes with a knife like the Pete, the expression of the budget materials is as good as it needs to be. And then other times there's this like thirst for something more. With the Tuna, I definitely felt it just in general. And a good way to express that is in the opening and closing. But I think it's more of an overall thing with the knife. And what I'm getting at is, even though maybe just from a knife lover's perspective and a guy who wants the best that he could possibly get, I would love to see both of these knives on IKBS. The big deficiencies with the Tuna don't have to do with the action. They just don't. These knives are both very similar in the way that they open and close, and my overall feeling about them both has nothing really to do with that. It has to do with the other aspects of it. So, yeah. The other thing about stainless steel frames, as we're talking about the action and the lockup, is I have in the past had some CRKTs that just did not have solid lock bars. These are both very good. Both very good. So I have no issues with that whatsoever. No issues with the security of the knife. All right, and then we're looking at price point, and I believe for both of these we're right around like the $45 mark. So maybe it's a little bit high for a number of people. Maybe it's not what you're going to be looking for. Sure. But when we're comparing the two of these together, for me, there's a definite pick. I think that just snapshot-wise, taking an aesthetic look at a knife, the Tuna's my preferred one. And let's move it back to the bottom. Keep it consistent. The Tuna's my preferred one, just in the look of the knife. But then once you get the two of them, you get them both in hand, and you get an understanding of what the knives are for and how they work. And even though the Tuna doesn't have any performance issues, there are these things about the Overland that just jump out at me. Those big things with the jimping and the way that it feels in hand, those initial reactions to that and the intentionality of the design that make it more good looking over time, if that makes sense. The same way that, you know, when you meet someone and they're a pretty good looking person, but then you find out that they're like the coolest person in the world, and then you fall in love with them, you know, and all of a sudden they're the hottest thing that ever walked. Like, if you've ever had that kind of experience, like the ability of something makes it more appealing as you go forward, you know, and it makes you enjoy it more as you go forward. So yes, just taking a photo of a knife, I would say that the design of the Tuna is the preferable one to me. But once you incorporate how this knife actually feels and how it is when you use it, and just all of those other details, the big ones to me that stand out make the Overland the winner. And it's, even though it seems like it's close, it's not close, because this has it and this doesn't. Bottom line. All right, guys, so that's my comparison. Again, great working with Jack Farmboy and getting my hands on this knife. I really appreciate him. Definitely check out his channel. Any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. What about these two knives would you have said was the breaking point, the deal breaker for you? What matters to you in this conversation and what doesn't? Always interested to hear your thoughts, guys. Thanks for watching and take care. Have a good one.